Good morning, everybody who may be here on the East Coast where it's morning, West Coast, the United States where it's morning. I'm Mark from rhythmguitarlessons.net. And if you're tuning in from some other part of the world, it might be afternoon, it might be evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If anybody's in the chat and they want to let us know where they are from, you're more than welcome to. You're also more than welcome to answer any questions that you might have. So today I have a special guest of mine. He is a rhythm guitar expert and he's on my rhythm guitar channel. So that's pretty cool. His name is Brian Fish. He's with Music Theory from Guitar. And we are going to talk today about, in our opinion, the best guitar players for rhythm guitar and what makes them great. So this was actually Brian's idea, which is a fantastic topic. And so I think, we're going to each throw out some rhythm guitar players that we like. We're going to talk about them. I think by the end of it, you might see some common traits that all great rhythm guitar players have. So without further ado, here is my friend, Brian Fish. Hey, Brian.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
Great. Sorry for the delay. I had a little bit of an internet problem. It was running slow. I had to reboot my modem. So anybody that was sitting there waiting, hopefully it's resolved.
Sounds good on my end. So
Cool. Well, great idea. Great idea for this live stream. I think it doesn't get talked about enough. I've had some conversations with our friend Tommaso at musictheoryforguitar.com, and we've touched upon certain elements of this, but we never really dedicated a whole live stream to it. So let's see. I got a list. You have a list?
I started with the list and it became fairly long.
Yeah, I know.
I started really thinking, what common traits do these guys all have?
All right.
So we can kind of attack it from either way. I've got plenty of people I'll mention throughout the whole thing.
All right. Well, let's talk about people first, and then if we get sidetracked, we get sidetracked.
Okay. Well, for me personally, my gold standard is Angus Young. So he's just he never overplays. He plays perfect for what the band needs. His rhythm is incredibly tight. He understands what rests are. We can start there. He never lets things ring through like that. He's always just super tight in the way he approaches everything he does. And even though AC/DC gets criticized for playing the same songs over and over again, there's actually quite a bit of variety in playing if you really delve into his career. So does he happen to be on your list then?
Yeah, he was on the list. He was there. It wasn't at the top of my list, but he was definitely on the list. What I like about his playing is that it's practically perfect.
Yes.
It's practically perfect in a rhythm guitar sense, that whatever that he is doing, he's executing to perfection. That's what I like most about him. It doesn't necessarily have to be complex to be a good rhythm guitar player. It just needs to be perfectly executed and consistent. That's what's really the cool thing about it, is the consistency.
Yes. And especially Thunderstruck, the big song. Everyone always focuses in on that lead line. That is cool. But if you listen to that rhythm part he's playing underneath that, to keep that particular part consistent, that's not easy. I mean, it's a 16th note little rhythm that he's just playing for like way over a minute.
Yes. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that rhythm part is probably overlooked. When you think of them, then you think, well, they're cool. You shook me, and Highway to Hell, which are all rhythm riffs.
I agree. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. I think I'm going to mute while you're talking. Can you do the same? Do you have original sound on?
As far as I know.
Okay, cool. Let me make sure my playback monitor's off too. All right, cool. It's just chock full of technical difficulties today, man. Crazy. Let's see
So
what we.
that one's probably biased on my end too, because that's honestly that's the band that got me into music. So I've been listening to them probably longer than any other band.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. I mean, I would have to say that they're actually one of my first also. I think I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. I remember having a little cassette player, and I had several cassettes. And the two standouts were Foreigner Double Vision and Kiss Alive 2.
Okay.
So I would have to say from the very beginning, I mean, I was attracted to Kiss as a young kid. But once I got into my own and started liking music, those were just things that were purchased for me. I don't know. I didn't say, oh, I want this. But soon after is when AC/DC came in, when I first started coming into my own as far as liking music. And as a matter of fact, I still have an original pressing of For Those About to Rock.
Yeah, I've still got my Highway to Hell that I bought with my allowance money way back when. So.
Yeah, me too. And actually, I play it pretty regularly.
All right, so who's on the top of your list then?
Well, the very first name that I wrote down was Nile Rodgers.
Okay, he's on my list as well.
So the reason why I like Nile Rodgers so much as a rhythm guitar player is what he can do with his right hand, or his strumming hand, let's just say. His strumming hand. The rhythmic things, like in the true rhythm sense, meaning like whether he was playing guitar or he was like, playing anything. The complexity of what he does with his right hand is absolutely amazing. And it's not even just so much that his right hand can do complex things. It's in combination with the muting that he's doing with his left hand and getting these percussive sounds. So it's a combination of when is he pressing down on a chord to make notes. And then the combination of his strumming hand, and then you marry those two together, and it sounds pretty crazy.
Yes, and then the accuracy too, because when I think of him, I think mostly chords, but there's a few little single note things he gets within that percussive style, and he's very accurate. And he's the master of getting things muted.
Yes, and he weaves those single notes in between that fast right hand thing and his continuity or his integration of being able to flow right into a couple of single notes and flow right back out into that is actually very impressive. The integration of his skills are actually pretty cool.
Yes, and the modern guy who's kind of doing the same thing is that Corey Wong. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but
I am familiar with him. I haven't listened to him extensively, but I know about him. As a matter of fact, one of my students at my local guitar school, he just saw him. He just performed locally to me not too long ago.
Okay. To me, he's kind of carrying on that tradition.
Okay. All right. I get it now. So Nile Rodgers, Angus Young, two great choices, great ways to start.
The thing that he does that really I want to highlight is just the muting that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then just the absolute precision, and you're controlling there's no excess string noise anywhere. There's not ringing, there's not obnoxious noise. It's so precise, so consistent, and so accurate. He's a fantastic player for those reasons.
Yeah, string muting is a big deal when it comes to his style. But if we want to bring this back to Angus Young, he has to be able to string mute very well because he plays at incredibly loud volumes. So if he wasn't muting strings that he wasn't playing, you really wouldn't be hearing the chords that he's going to be playing because the feedback would just be taken over.
Yes, or just there would be ringing noise because again, they have those start and stop chords.
Yes.
Yes. I just goofed up there. I let the little noise ring.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, those pauses, those rests are honestly more important than the chords. The rests, the space is what's making that catchy.
Well, that creates part of the rhythm. Rests, empty space.
Yes. And it's something I think way too many guitar players overlook. They just plow through and just keep playing.
Totally agree. Totally agree. All right. So next on my list is Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix is a master rhythm guitar player. And the cool thing about Jimi Hendrix to me is that if you listen to his album versions, it's cool. But then if you ever listen to anything that he did live with the same song, it's actually never the same way twice. Because he knows how to be able to play, along with the bass player, the chord changes, but not necessarily play chords. He chooses to weave single note lines, little 2-note chords or dyads or triads, and be able to play melodically where somebody might be able to just play a single note line or just hold a chord. He kind of fuses playing chords and playing single notes together. So it kind of sounds like a chord, but it's kind of melodic, like playing a single note thing. So that's why I like him, because he's capable of not doing the same thing twice, but have it still be the same song.
Yeah, and that falls right into my list too, which is just, can you create variations on something you do all the time?
Yes.
And he's able to do that. Like, it's a good idea to do that in your practice time, because then you can make all the mistakes you want and have no one else in the world hear them. Whereas Jimi Hendrix, he was a fearless player. He would create stuff on stage all the time. Sometimes it worked, and other times it didn't work as well. But I always liked him just for that. I mean, to me, I kind of put him and Stevie Ray Vaughan in the same category, whereas Stevie Ray Vaughan took what Hendrix was doing and just practiced a little bit more. It became a little bit more precise. So both fantastic, amazing players. But there's a little bit more precision, and I thought what Stevie Ray Vaughan did very similar.
Yes, I totally agree, because he was next on the list. It was a refined version of Stevie Ray Vaughan, of Jimi Hendrix. Stevie Ray Vaughan was a refined version for sure.
Yeah, but he had the opportunity to listen to someone else do it and see how they were doing it and just take the aspects that worked and refine it. So he had a little bit of an advantage going in.
Totally. All right, who do you got next on your list?
Now we talk about precision. There's different ways of doing that. And it's, to me, where this is going to fall in the consistency category and making variations. But I've always liked Brad Whitford and Joe Perry. So those guys come up with so many catchy riffs. And even though they're probably not as precise as Malcolm Young in timing, they play the way they play very consistently. There's just, to me, Aerosmith has a little bit of slop to what they do, but that's their sound. And it's not like it's all over the place and out of control. It's very precise in the way they play loosely. And it's another skill. I mean, AC/DC has very much precision. In fact, if you analyze both bands, because I like both bands a lot, they use a lot of the same material, a lot of blues boogie things, thirds, fourths. They're taken from the exact same pool of techniques, but the results are completely different. Oh, I think you're muted there, Mark.
I totally agree. Aerosmith has a more loose quality to it, but there's a synergy.
Yes, they kind of let attitude come through just a little bit more. That makes sense.
Yes, I totally agree. Well,
and again, there's just a looseness in what they do, but it's a very consistent looseness that they can replicate night after night.
yes, that's where the precision is that looseness is always consistently the same.
Yeah, and my reference point, I mean, I didn't get to see them live until like the late 80s. So luckily I've seen the sober version of those guys. And I think, because I've heard very mixed things from people who've seen them live in the 70s, as far as that precision was lacking at times. But if you've seen them any time since they got back together, they've been an incredibly tight, precise band.
I think possibly substances at the time during that era had something to do with that.
Yes. You can add that to your list of things if you want to become a good rhythm guitar player. Maybe avoid all that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yes, I totally agree. Well, listen, we got Hans from Sweden. I forgot to give him a shout out earlier on. Thanks, Hans. Thanks for checking it out. Hopefully the live stream is going. I'm still seeing a little bit of a delay of things on my end. I don't know how it's coming out across, whether the audio is matching up with the video, but worst case scenario, you could just listen to it because the conversation's still good, even if the video isn't matching with the audio. All right, cool. Well, speaking of marrying sort of lead melody stuff combined with chords, but not really just playing bar chords or power chords, we have the great Eddie Van Halen. A very, very great rhythm guitar player. Everybody focuses on him playing lead, him playing lead, him playing lead. No, let me tell you something. In order to play what he wrote correctly, it has to be done right. Otherwise, it doesn't sound like it. Now, he was really big on adding swing, like a swing feel, to rock stuff. And so that was kind of really a big deal because he really wasn't a blues player doing boogie woogies or any kind of swing type blues stuff. I mean, he was a straight up in your face, tear your head off rock guitar player. But he had a lot of really cool feel to his rhythm, as well as choices of creating particular lines, I would say. They were rhythm lines. They weren't just like banging around on chords. So to me, he was absolutely fantastic in being able to marry a swing feel, playing partial chords to make it sound melodic, and still have like a very big rock sound to it.
Yes, and on top of that, he added a bunch of phrasing elements too. So when he's going, to your thirds, that he's just not playing those straight. He's sliding into those, and that slide adds so much attitude. And plus, when he hits a chord, a lot of times he's adding vibrato to chords too. He's definitely on my line.
Yeah.
Little phrasing elements that most people think are lead guitar elements. You can absolutely add that stuff if you know what you're doing, your rhythm guitar playing, and it makes it so much better.
Yes, totally. And then I think someone that, whether it was intentional or unintentional, but as music evolved in the 80s, Warren DeMartini from Rat took a page out of the Eddie Van Halen book, not so much as far as the swing goes, but as far as like creating these riffs that just aren't power chord based. He was using little triads and things like that, and They were lines that happened, but they were like big, huge, like, metal style riffs. But I think that's I see the direct lineage from Eddie Van Halen in that.
Oh, absolutely. Eddie Van Halen influenced just about everyone in the 80s.
Yeah.
Not everyone did it to the same level. The guys from Rat were really good at taking that style and going with it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Ones too. Like, I don't know who the guy from XYZ was, but the Inside Out song, complete Van Halen feeling what he's doing as far as making a melody within his chords.
Yeah. 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 Actually, one of the original guitar players lives near me. I wonder if it was him.
Could be. I have no idea who was in. I just remember that song having.
Yeah.
But that was so common throughout those few years.
Yes, it was very common. So who else you got?
I've got, of course, James Hetfield. He has to be on everyone's list. And again, especially in the studio, just that tightness and creativity. As far as, again, they're using a whole lot of power chords and pedal tones and a few single note riffs here and there. They'll use some thirds as well.
Mm-hmm.
But getting that many great songs out of that small palette of material is pretty impressive. In the studio, he's very impressive.
Yeah, the precision aspect of his picking hand is just absolutely brutal. It really is brutal. Consistency, precision. I don't know. That keeps coming up a lot, doesn't it?
It does. Yes.
So let's use that as a segue. Let's use that as a segue to you. Not only did you want to mention and talk about particular guitar players, but also things that all these guitar players do well, or lots of, or things that a lot of good guitar players do. So what you got?
Okay. So the very first one is just, again, paying attention to rest, making sure it's ring noise. Nothing can ring through. And we can add in the use of the volume knob to that. In between songs, your volume knob exists for a reason. Okay? Put it on 0. Because that's going to get rid of any type of, if you have noise from pedals or anything like that going on, just turn off your volume knob and it's going to get rid of a whole lot of noise. Okay? And just be really paying attention when there's stops, that no one, if you're playing with other people, that whatever you're doing is not ringing through. And if someone else in the band is letting something ring through, if you can nicely let them know to stop doing that, because you're ruining the effect of any rest or stop that's going on. And it's just making your band sound very sloppy, or you're playing sound very sloppy, ignoring that stuff. So do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, using those particular things on your guitar, like volume knobs, are actually pretty important. They're very, very, very important. Most people don't really realize how important they are. So, being able to control your tone live is something that, micromanaging your tone, I guess you could call it that. It's something that's sort of almost a lost art, where you could really coax a lot of different sounds out of your guitar, and also the sound of being quiet as well. So, it's something that you should really get used to doing. There was one time, at one point in my life, I had gotten a Les Paul Jr., and it's got one volume, one tone, and one pickup. And I really, really, really learned how to use volume and tone controls with one pickup, because I was currently playing in a band at the time, and we covered a lot of material, from 70s classic rock to doing the Police from the 80s type stuff, to doing more kind of like really newer hard rock stuff. So, I was kind of forced to learn how to use it because I really felt comfortable with the guitar. So, it was one of the best educations I ever had on using a volume knob, including quiet.
Yes, and you need to know how to do that. And most people don't know. I mean, everyone's always using these, and I do this as well, but like stacking pedals for different overdrive. But you can have a lot of overdrive, and if you know how to use that volume knob, you can just peel that back
Yes.
just with your volume. And
So-
most people don't do that a lot.
No, they don't. And so, like, Scott just had a comment. Scott Petrie, how hard you play, dynamics, and he says doing acoustic gigs really put that forward.
What's much easier on acoustic guitar, when you
Yes.
start playing with overdrive compresses things. So you need to find ways to imply dynamics when you're doing that. What I mean by that is if you're playing the chords the whole time, kind of Green Day style, although
Yeah.
I do consider him a good rhythm player, that's very much his style in your face the whole time. If you just add root and some palm muting, it gives the illusion that there's actually a dynamic here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just putting things like that in your playing and not just pounding away at the chords, a little bit of palm muting, a little bit of hitting less string, adding in more strings if you want to give the impression of it getting louder. Little things like that for rock guitar players especially are something you really need to work with lots of volume.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but Scott's correct too in the sense though that it's easier to get a handle of it if you are playing acoustic. Now it's not going to translate 1-to-1, but if you don't have too much overdrive, how hard you hit the strings can actually it's how hard the signal goes into the amp, and your amp could be driving just a little bit more if you play harder, and then if you lighten up, you don't quite have as much gain. So that's actually really good. That's a really good point, Scott. Before I forget, though, prior to that comment, when we were talking about Warren DeMartini, Scott said Dave Meniketti from Y&T.
Well, he's the complete package.
Yes.
He plays great lead, plays great rhythm, and sings great on top of that.
Yes, he does.
Seamlessly goes between all those.
Yes, absolutely. Cool, man. So, do you have another broad topic that lots of good guitar players do?
Just use of syncopation. If everything's always on the beat, it's predictable, and there's nothing catchy to grab your ear. And pretty much everyone we just talked about has syncopation in what they play. So if you're not familiar with what syncopation is, it's playing on your off, and it's something that if you're going to be playing music at all, you need to be working on. You need to be practicing.
Yes, I totally agree. What else you got?
My next item was actually dynamics, and someone else brought that up for us, so thank them for that. But
Yes.
is huge. It's something you just need to experiment with. And if you're doing acoustic guitar, it's much easier because how hard you hit it with the pick, honestly, what you pick with makes a big difference too. And just know that the more overdrive, the more distortion we're adding to things, the more that you have to find ways to imply dynamics because the more compressed things get. So if you're playing acoustic, it's really easy. If you're playing with like a country tone, although a lot of country players use compressors, so take your compressor off to get dynamics there. And if we're talking like rock guys, we're back to thinking Malcolm Young. He really didn't play with a very distorted tone. His tone was much cleaner than Angus's, and so he was able to get a lot of dynamic range in what he did there too. But if we're getting into like Metallica type overdrive, then the open string or the single notes combined with chords and the palm muting becomes essential just to get those dynamics in there. The next big thing is listen and interact. So just don't just plow through.
I think what you just said right there, I think that of all the things that we've talked about so far, I think listening to what's going on around you and playing appropriately in what's happening at the moment is probably one of the most important skills that you could do if you really want to not be an amateur. You don't necessarily have to be the best at everything else that we're talking about, but I truly believe that if you're actually playing to the music that's being created by the other instruments and you're playing with them and not on top of them, that even if you're playing with musicians that don't understand what's going on as to exactly what you're doing, they're just going to say at the end of the session, yeah, I like playing with that guy. They may not know exactly why. It may have kind of gone over their head. So to a really experienced musician, they're going to key right in on it. But even if you're jamming with people that aren't as experienced as someone who's like a pro level player, they're just going to say to themselves, I don't know, for some reason it just felt better with that guy.
Yes.
Doesn't get talked about enough.
It doesn't. And just the amount of fun you can have too. If you, especially if you have a good drummer who listens, you start interacting. You play a little something, they answer back, and all of a sudden you guys have a nice little conversation, a little song. As long as it still fits music.
Yes. Have you ever seen the band Primus?
Yes.
So it's three guys on stage, and the guitar player's playing with the drummer, and the drummer's playing with the bass player, and the bass player's playing with the guitar player, but simultaneously the guitar player's playing with the bass player. It's like this weird thing.
Yes, and they're a fairly tight band as well, which is, for as weird as they get, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So we have let me see. Of all the things that you've mentioned, I think everybody, as far as the people that we mentioned before, I think they all have those traits to some degree.
Yes, if you're missing one of these traits that we're talking about, you're more than likely never going to make this list.
Exactly. They may not be famous for one of these traits, but they actually are capable of doing them, or they do them and it just goes under the radar.
Yes. Because again, I brought up the guy from Green Day. They're actually a very tight band.
Oh,
There's a reason they stand out from the other pop punk bands. They work together and they definitely listen because they're all playing together, very precise.
yeah. Yeah. And that's why it sounds like you're getting hit over the head with a hammer when you see them live.
Yes.
Absolutely. So is there anything else on your list, Brian?
Well, if we go back even further, there's like Steve Cropper, the guy from the Stax recordings, who, but again, we're going back to the same subjects again. He left space, lots of space. Same with the guys from Motown, and the Wrecking Crew. They all kind of did the same thing. They played exactly what was right for the song. They listened a lot. Actually, the Wrecking Crew guys read me. I think the other guys just created on the spot. And they made up little melodies. It's not as intricate as what Eddie Van Halen or Warren DeMartini are doing, but they would take little sixths and thirds and little things like that and make a hook in what they're playing.
Yeah.
The lead line, but the hook was throughout the entire song.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to insert whatever you're going to be playing in these little tiny spaces that exist is really a big art. So obviously don't be too busy and step all over the singer. But there's also these little holes if the singer's not playing. There's other instrumentation where you can kind of like insert yourself there and do something tasteful. And to be aware of those little tiny holes where you could put yourself in, sneak in and sneak out, so to speak, and then kind of hang in the background, then sneak in and sneak out. That's actually that's an art as far as I'm concerned, to be able to almost intuitively just know, you just by, again, your complete awareness of what's going on around you, where you could poke your head out and then tuck it back in.
Yes, and those guys like Eddie Van Halen too, they're creating, their rhythm part is actually a hook of the song.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just like if they saw an A chord on the chart, they're just not playing the first A chord they thought of and sticking with it.
Absolutely.
They're taking an A and then and then just making it so that it becomes just as catchy sometimes with the melody line.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. I mean, that's what those studio dudes do. It's like they get a chart and it just says you're going to be playing an A chord. Well, they're not just playing an A chord. They're actually composing something that fits to the music. It's just not A. You just have to be doing something that's, you know, in the world of an A chord that includes one note, two note, three notes, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Whether it be playing double stops or whatever the case may be. That's what they get paid for. Instant creativity.
What's another one of the most famous studio guys, Steve Lukather? I mean, he didn't make a living as a rhythm. He's known for his lead playing too, but the rhythms and the hooks that he came up with in those songs, the fact that he doesn't have publishing is criminal.
Instantly, in an instant, plays through it once, looks at a chart, plays through it once. It's that guy hit the record button, and then that was the keeper.
Yes.
Crazy.
Well, to be that guy that everyone wants to have play.
What's that?
You want to be that guy that everyone wants to have play.
Absolutely. That's why he was in such demand.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Brian, I really appreciate you coming on. Now, I know that you have something that's free for people. So why don't you tell them about it? Let me hold on. Give me 1 second. I got to see what's going on here. I got the graphic for you. I'm clicking the button. My computer's not responding. Here we go. Tell us all about what you have to offer us.
Okay. Well, it's the 6 easy steps to learn and play any rhythm with perfect timing. It just takes you from the absolute basics through the different steps you need to get any rhythm down. And it's a video. I'm taking you through step by step. And I'm showing you the process you need to go through to master any rhythm. It's free. So pick it up.
Very cool. Oh, that's cool, man. I mean, what's better than free, right? So I do have something also. It is the beginner's guide. Oh, there we go. The beginner's guide to adding lead guitar elements to your rhythm playing. It basically is how to weave single note lines in between your chord changes. So instead of playing your chord right to the end before the next change, you can actually cut it a little short, add a few single notes, hit your next chord in time. It is an absolute beginner level thing. So if you have a clue on how to do this, this isn't for you. But if you have no clue, this is for you. There's diagrams. I tell you exactly what notes to play. There's audio examples so you know if you're playing them correctly. So if you ever wondered, how does that happen? How do they do it? Well, this will actually get you started. So Brian, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. It was really cool of you to spend that time with me this morning.
Thanks for having me. It's fun as always. Talk to you.
Cool, man. And I believe I'm going to be seeing you next month in person, right?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, I'm sure we're going to do this again. And so we'll definitely have another cool conversation. Until then, goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.